As the Mongols pushed westward, they conquered a lot of their Turkish cousins who had already established their own kingdoms and cultures throughout Central Asia and Persia. The result in the Western three Khanates, the Golden Horde, the Chagatai, and the Ilkhanate, was that what we call a Turco-Mongol culture emerged among the elites. The Turkic and Mongol cultures already weren't that far apart, but they became especially intermingled in this part of the world during the 13th and 14th centuries. A member of this Turco-Mongol culture ended up establishing his own empire after the fall of the Mongols. His name was Tamerlane, or possibly Timur, and by the beginning of the 15th century he had conquered Afghanistan and Persia, filling in the void left by the western portion of the Chagatai Khanate as well as the Ilkhanate. He died in 1405, and his descendants weren't quite as talented as him. They were able to maintain a slightly smaller version of this empire, though. But in 1526, Tamerlane's great-great-great-grandson, Babur, that's three greats plus a grandson, he's a few generations down the line, conquered the Punjab region of South Asia. He created the last Muslim dynasty of India, something called the Mughal Dynasty, which was named after its Mongol roots. The dynasty he founded was the same dynasty that built the Taj Mahal in the 17th century. It was the dynasty that the European traders dealt with in order to obtain spices and teas. And it was the dynasty that the British conquered. By the beginning of the 19th century, the Mughals were clients of something called the British East India Company. That's right, a business essentially owned India. But like all businesses, it was more interested in making a profit than governing a country. And it was so heavy-handed in its dealings with the South Asians that in 1857, there was a very bloody uprising. In order to smooth out this area of British influence, the British government simply made their queen the Empress of India. They called this colony the British Raj, Raj just being the Hindi word for king. They ruled over India for 90 years, and finally in 1947, India was given its freedom. There was some concern that it would devolve into civil wars between the Hindus and the Muslims of the subcontinent. Of course, there wasn't any concern about Buddhism, not because there's no history of Buddhists being violent, but because, as you might remember, there weren't very many Buddhists in South Asia for the previous 1,000 years. In order to stave off this coming civil war, the British set up Pakistan and Bangladesh as Muslim states, leaving India as a Hindu state. To this day, Pakistan and India are bitter rivals, and unfortunately they're both nuclearly armed